for me. Hello, everyone.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear us?
I can hear you. My question is if you can hear and see me well.
Yes, I can.
Yes, you can.
Perfect.
The
That's
recording
great.
has already started, just for your information,
Yes.
because we have started the webinar.
Should be fine. Okay, it's 14:03. And I see less people dropping in. I would suggest that we wait maybe one more minute and start at 14:05 with the webinar in content. Okay, good afternoon. Welcome to our webinar today on ENTSO-E's annual work program for next year, the draft for annual work program 2025. We scheduled 1.5 hours. And if you go to the next slide, please, Volga. Thank you. We have to record this meeting just for transparency and for someone who wants to have a double check later. If you object this, please let us know now by raising your hand or just speaking up. So I do not see any objections. Then we continue the recording and the streaming. Further organizational details, we scheduled approximately 1.5 hours, and we aim for an interactive workshop. Yeah, that means we will have poll in Teams, and we will also have Q&A sessions in between and afterwards. And I warmly invite you, if there's something unclear, if you use abbreviations you don't know, if you want to make a remark, please raise your hand or put a question in the chat directly on the fly. Yeah, we try to include it, and that makes it more lively, and mostly you're not alone. If you explain something that you don't understand, it's very likely that others feel the same and don't raise the voice. Yeah, so please go for an interactive session. Whereas all participants should be muted until they get the floor, just to avoid some chaos. And if there is a question in the chat or a comment we cannot answer now in the webinar, then we will definitely address it later. Yeah, so either bilaterally or to a larger group. And yeah, that's all in my view. I am really looking forward to challenging questions to us and to a really active session. And my hope is that every one of you has something to take home, an eye-opener or something learned or whatever might be. Yes, thanks for all your participation, for all the interest. I see now 71 participants. That is great. And enjoy the session. The first part will be a poll in the Teams. So assuming that you might have read last year's annual work program or this year's on the chapters we face. So we have a structure of the annual work program. And here you see the different chapters, and we ask for a voting. So Volga just opens the poll. So please just to give us an indication what is of most interest for you or most important as priority in this webinar, just please answer the poll. Yeah, the results are shared later on. Your names are not recorded. So it's an anonymous voting if the configuration is right. Okay, while you answer the poll, we can maybe already continue with the agenda of this webinar. So we've shared the link to the webinar, to the draft annual work program with the invitation of this webinar. And we thought it's most easy for you to follow the structure according to the Word document. Yeah, that means we have a session for system operation to name some highlights here, same for market afterwards followed by system development, transparency regulation, of course, also research and development, and the new network codes and guidelines. Furthermore, also the transmission and distribution interface, interoperability, and last but not least, our reporting obligations. Yeah, so the first, as introduction, Pavlos will give you some insight into the general process of the annual work program in itself, upcoming timelines, your timeframes to contribute, and our next steps.
Thank you very much, Eva, and welcome to everyone. I'm Pavlos Natsis. I'm the Annual Work Program Team Manager at the Secretariat. I will give you a brief update of our timeline, what we have done this year. So you see in the first part, it's our draft phase where we're currently ending now. So we start in the early months of the year with gathering input to our draft AWP. That means the creation of the list of deliverables, and after that, of course, the development of the text. This, of course, follows some internal procedures and approvals from our ENTSO-E decision-making bodies. And where we stand today, as you see, is after the launch of the public consultation, which was this Friday. We hold our annual webinar today with all of you to give you some highlights of what you will see in the AWP. And during this period, of course, we gather your input, and these will be analyzed and resolved after the public consultation ends. And we will, slowly move to the final phase of the AWP, which we will be around September and October with our final approvals, and then the subsequent submission to Acer. So we can move to the next slide, please. And yeah, you will see that the AWP itself is a legal obligation for ENTSO-E under the electricity regulation, Article 30. And I would say, yes, it's a collection of our legal mandates. We gather the input from all committees and all work streams around ENTSO-E, stemming from, of course, European legislation for the TSOs and ENTSO-E. During this time, as I said, we have launched the public consultation. You can access it via this link. I believe the slides have been shared prior to the meeting with you, but it's also, this link will lead you directly there. And yeah, we welcome you to provide any comments you have and give us your insights, and so that we continue to develop and finalize our AWP. For this year, we have identified 23 new tasks for the association. Out of those 23, 20 will continue beyond 2025. And we are also aiming to deliver and close 13 tasks in 2025 for this cycle. Any questions I'm happy to take. Otherwise, I will give the floor to the next colleague to give you the first highlights of the system operations, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Pavlos. And indeed, I would also like to thank all the contributors for the informal feedback we've received before. Yeah, so that was also very helpful. Also during the year and the fly to improve our annual work program. We also had a general remark on the structure to, let's say, following the legal mandates as we do here and the legal obligations to be finished in the specific year. We lose, of course, the, let's say, spotlight on priorities. Yeah, might be if you look for CGM, that it's hard to find CGM here in the agenda. Maybe because there's no concrete deliverable in that year. Yeah, so that could be an option to restructure the whole annual work program. I think that was a very valuable comment, but hard to implement spontaneously for this year. So it's not forgotten. Big thank you also for this informal feedback during the year. Just need some time to get it implemented. Yeah, so I would say let's continue. The next one indeed is system operation. I think Andrea and Florian are in the call as our experts to tell us something about the European Awareness System, the so-called EAS, the mentioned common grid model hidden in system operation, and also our RCCs. Volga, I think there's an issue with the moderation part for Florian.
Yes, but I don't see Florian as a speaker presented in the webinar. Maybe he has some delay, so we can switch the topics.
No, he's in the call. He just cannot unmute himself, he told.
Okay, just a second. I will try to do so.
And I also cannot unmute him.
So now you might be able to hear me and also to see me. Hello to everybody. So thank you for the opportunity to present the elements regarding the European, or concretely saying, ENTSO-E awareness system. So what did we achieve? As you all know, we had the incident in 2021 with the European system separation, and stemming from this incident, there was the task to further develop the ENTSO-E awareness system regarding the integration of WAMS data. So WAMS is here the wide area monitoring system, where we have measurement stations, let's say, not everywhere, but at many stations in the grid. And with these measurement stations, we can provide the operators with enhanced frequency measurement, enhanced voltage measurements, which are then displayed in a new kind of map, an enhanced map, and which also provide the voltage angles, and this is beneficial from a point that the overview is better over the system. What we further did was to integrate the data from balancing platforms, and this was also seen as necessary. The actual version of the AIS, which is based on Simon's Spectrum 4, will end in at the beginning of 2027. So we now will further focus on preparing the transition to a new system, so that we are ready in the beginning of 2020 system with a new AIS system. A new AIS, that was doubled. And which we'll also do until then is to develop some let's say easily implementable functions which are based on the WAMS data, and further develop an ex-post analytical platform, so that we can can fulfill the purpose of analyzing some operational events for the operators. So this is the plan for the EIS, and yeah, thank you for your attention.
Yeah, thank you, Florian. Now we have the common grid model presented by Andrea.
Good afternoon, everyone. Yes, so let's give you a little news and explanation on the common grid model. So the common grid model, as well as the operational planning data environment, or PDE, are both fundamental tasks of the RCC, being enablers of operational coordination and security of supply at the European level. The legal basis for those two tasks is found in the network codes, specifically in the system operation guideline, the capacity allocation congestion management, and in the forward capacity allocation. So what is a CGM? A CGM is basically a compilation of individual grid models. So these models are delivered by each TSO, and then they are received in the operational planning data environment and taken by RCC and merged together. So from a huge number of individual grid models, then it will come out one common grid model, including the network of all the countries that provided and joined the process. So the timeframes are covered. The timeframes actually we deliver yearly, so year ahead. CGM every year, and then we deliver from D-2 to basically real time, or at least close to real time. So these IGMs, they are assessed according to some quality criteria, and they are their net position is aligned through the verification platform, and therefore the aim here is to provide a CGM that is usable by the services. As a matter of fact, the CGM is a task by itself, but it's also the main enabler for all the other services, most of the other services, including coordinated capacity calculation, security analysis, outage planning. So it is a prerequisite for other RCC and regional coordination services. So for what concerns 2025, it's going to be a critical year for CGM, because we are working to deliver proper quality CGM in time for the go live of the process that uses them. So specifically would be the regional operational security coordination task. So the aim is really to deliver CGMs that are fit for purpose. So that's our aim for 2025. So I guess we can move to the next slide if there are no questions.
I do not see a raised hand so far, and also no questions in the chat. But
Okay.
indeed, that's some of the weak points of our annual work program, no? That we hide such an important basis for our operational work just in one section and one line, in one to do, so to say.
Yeah.
That was definitely a valuable remark.
Yeah, absolutely, even offline or later. Okay, so talking about regional coordination centers. So the regional, a little bit of history on these entities that are critical for successfully coordinating at regional and pan-European level. So the first, they became a legal mandate in the system operation guideline with only 5 core tasks to be performed, which included mostly capacity calculation, security analysis, outage planning, coordination, and adequacy studies. This at the beginning they were called regional security coordinator. But then with the coming up and the go live of the clean energy package and the new regulation, the new electricity regulation, it was mandated to basically it was mandated to evolve these companies, making them RCCs, so regional coordination centers, which now have 16 tasks to fulfill. So among the first, or let's say, including the first 5. So it was an expansion of the scope, and it requires a restructuring of the companies themselves. These companies are owned, so these are entities owned and appointed by TSOs in the system operation regions to fulfill those 16 tasks. In general, besides the specific of each task, they are always very, let's say, they are very much taken into consideration by TSOs as a reference point for recommendation on regional level, or issues that span across the single pitting zone. So RCC really contribute to regional coordination, but also to the efficiency of the operation of the system, and or to minimize the risk of wide area events by favoring information sharing by within the TSO community. So their impact is, let's say, technical from the system operation point of view, but also in terms of economic consideration. They help lowering costs by ensuring, for example, coordinated capacity calculation that then is fed into the market. So for 2025, on top of the tasks that are already live or that should go live, the focus of ENTSO-E would be on this task that you see listed here on the left. So training and certification, supporting restoration, sizing and procurement, inter-TSO settlement, and maximum entry capacity, and need for new infrastructure. So I don't think we have time to go through them. And yes, maybe should have started from the beginning. On the right, you can see all the RCCs that we have that are currently in place. So we have 6 covering the entirety of Europe. So that would be it, I think.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrea. I still do not see a raised hand or question, but according to the poll we started, you won 19% of the prioritization, yes? So at least our audience is aware how important system operation is. Yeah, or that was part of the most interest. So thank you for being here. Also, thank you for this, let's say, more coverage presentation on this part of deep dive, part of overview. I think that was a good mix. And I still do not see a raised hands, and I would say we continue to the market part. Ludivine, the floor is yours, and also market was voted as really important. So feel free also to give some more explanation, yeah, to put it as second priority in our call today.
Thank you, Eva-Marie, and also good afternoon from my side. So I will present you the market highlights. So we will cover different regulation. The first one is the capacity calculation and congestion management, so which is covering the DEVED and intraday time frame. So the first task will be the continuation of the implementation of the algorithm methodology with the implementation of 50 minutes projects in DEVED. The deadline for this is Q1 2025. And then we will have the implementation of a flow-based allocation in intraday time frame. This will take a bit longer time, and we will work on it all through 2025. We will have also the review of the effectiveness of the algorithm, which is a periodical review and needs to be performed by all TSOs and all NEMOs each 2 years. Then, coming from the EMDR reform, we will have to work on the intraday cross-zonal gate closure time that will need to be amended to be set at a maximum 30 minutes before delivery. And this needs to be done before the 1st of January 2026. So we will work on it in 2025. Then on the congestion income distribution methodology, it is an implementation that was set in the latest decision from ACER regarding the influence of advanced hybrid coupling. So it's a cross capacity calculation region interaction. And then this needs to be implemented so that the revenue can be correctly set up for each of the TSO.
And I think the market frames the perspective at it, and we need this entire perspective.
Is there any questions yet?
And it's a reason why.
Pavlos? Oh, okay. Okay. Then I can continue if there is no question yet. On the capacity calculation region, We have to perform an assessment of the configuration of the regions by 3 months after the implementation of the first regional operation security coordination. So it might start in 2025, depending on the deadline. And then we will also support the energy community countries to propose and to amend the CCR configuration so that they can be included in the CCR proposal. And then the bidding zone review is to be delivered by end of this year, and we will follow up on any of the additional tasks that can come up after this. And we will also follow up on the amendment of the CACM regulation that it is planned also for the end of this year. If we move to the long-term time frame, sorry, it was in the previous slide, yes, still. So we will be working on the long-term market implementation, trying to improve the long-term market as much as we can, and the OTSO are now trying to identify what can be implemented. Then we will work also on the harmonized allocation rules that most likely will be submitted in March to be implemented in for the first yearly auction for the 2026 year. And we will also contribute to the assessment of a long-term market, and especially contributing to the targeted consultation from the Commission that should be launched after the EMDR reform approval during this summer. So we can move to the next slide now, and I will continue with the balancing time frame. So on the balancing, we will have the harmonization of cross-zonal capacity allocation processes. The decision from ACER is expected in January 2025. OTSO will submit the amendments by the 31st of July this year. These amendments are on the governance and forecasting to be performed by the OTSO, and also some voluntary amendment on the maximum limits for cross-zonal capacity for the balancing capacity exchange. So this was included in the ACER decision in 2023, so we follow up on that. And once this decision is in place, the TSO will focus on the implementation activities, and TSOs are currently working on the so-called COBRA project, which focuses on the market-based process implementation. Regarding the amendment of IFR and implementation framework and pricing methodology, the ACER decision is expected by 5 of July, and TSO will focus on the implementation of this decision related to the high price mitigation measure, and the 15K cap and the elastic demand in the platforms for 2024 and 2025. Regarding the RCC procurement, in mid-2025, based on the individual SORA assessment, the parameters for the annex of the RCC procurement proposal will need to be submitted to ACER. And in 2024 and to be continued in 2025, OTSO will be working on these parameters. And regarding the balancing platform, some TSO will be joining the platform in 2025 in accordance with the published accession roadmap. And ENTSO-E will continue to support the implementation and operation of the EU balancing platform, provide implementation status via the updates of the ENTSO-E webpage and via the annual reporting, and also with via the stakeholder workshop. Regarding the regulation on the internal market for electricity, so the inter-TSO compensation mechanism, for this next year, we will implement the main recommendation that we will work on this year with regards to the number of snapshots, the pricing of transit losses, and more generally on the method for estimating the volume of transit losses. We will also try to advise policymakers where necessary for the improvements that are required on the legislative acts. Sorry. And that's it for the market outlines.
Thank you, Ludivine. And if I may compliment, I perceive that we have more and more, let's say, pending tasks over the years, depending, for example, on an amendment proposal triggered by an ACER decision. Yeah, so quite often it's not that clear or that structured as it was 10 years ago with a new network code and clear steps for implementation. It's now developing into a more dynamic field, no? If the ACER decision is coming up in April, then we have a deliverable in October. If it comes 2 years later, then we have the deliverable 2 years later. Yeah, or if someone hands in a request for amendment, we might have a deliverable in 2025 or an obligation to deliver that we are not even aware of now. Yeah, so this gives an overview, and we do not know now at the moment how to, let's say, improve our annual work program in a way to also model these dynamic aspects properly. Yeah, so it's just the status quo, the best we can predict now for our deliverables in 2025.
Exactly.
Yes, this is valid. Yeah, please.
We are in a quite dynamic environment, and yeah, which is true that it is the status that we can provide now regarding the work next year.
Yeah, and it's valid for all fields of operation and ENTSO-E, but most for market, no? Because I think market is the most dynamic field here. Yeah, so this is the best outlook we can give for 2025. But if there's new or an additional legal mandate to fulfill, of course, we will manage. I still do not see a raised hand. I hope that everything is clear and not everything unclear. But if there's no remarks, then I would simply say thank you, Ludivine, also for your presentation and for your time here. And I would suggest to continue. Next one is system development with Leah. Thanks for being here.
Hi, thanks, Eva. Good afternoon, everyone. So with this slide, I will give an overview of what we have in the pipeline in the system development topics in the coming year. So you can see on the top main upcoming deliverable is the TUNDP 2026, which is currently already ongoing. So if you follow the work on the development of scenarios, you may know that last week we had a kickoff workshop. So on scenarios in 2025, the main event will be that we will run the public consultation on the input data and main assumptions and methodologies around May, June of 2025. There will be other stakeholder engagement opportunities throughout the year with webinars and events. One main change that we are introducing in the scenario cycle for the 26 process is that we will no longer have the two storylines that we used to call distributed energy and global ambition. Instead of that, we will have one central scenario which will be based on national targets. And next to that scenario, we will have a high and a low economic variance. So this was presented already last week, and it is a significant change compared to the previous cycles. With regards to the next steps in the scenario timeline, so we expect to release the draft scenarios, to share them, to submit them to ACER, the European Commission, and to member states towards end of 25 or by early 2026. As regards other steps of the TUNDP, so we have already started defining the overall TUNDP scope, although this is still pretty much the start of the work. Early next year, I expect we will release a document detailing the scope, the planned scope of the TUNDP, and especially the engagement plan, and we'll aim to really get your feedback on it. Through the year, we'll progress on the two other components of the TUNDP beside the scenarios, which are the assessment of system needs. So this comes in two parts. There is, on one side, the infrastructure gaps report, and on the other, the offshore network development plans. For the offshore network development plans, as you may know, early this year we published the first edition. So in 2026 it will be the second edition. And specifically in 2025, what we'll be doing and where we'll seek some input from you is that we will be working on the methodologies, both for our system needs study and for the ONDPs. So the engagement plan is still to be defined, but you can expect some discussion on methodologies and input data. And then regarding the third component of the TUNDP, which is the analysis of infrastructure projects. In 25, we will be consulting on the guidance for project promoters, and we will be running the submission window to collect infrastructure projects, and that would later be assessed in the TUNDP. So that's all for the TUNDP per se. Next to the TUNDP, we have also 2 other legal mandates with deadline next year. These are the release of the interlinked model, which is being developed with ENTSO-E. So that is expected towards October, and it is also the cost sharing per sea basin and the implementation of the guidelines that were released by the Commission about 10 days ago. And this is expected for June 25. Now moving on towards the bottom of the slide. So of course we also released the yearly European Resources Adequacy Assessment, so the ERA. The ERA 25 will be the 5th edition of this study. As every year, it is expected to be released around November 2025. We'll run towards March or early Q2 of 25 the usual call for evidence, meaning that we'll ask for your views on the input data and main assumptions for the ERA. And of course, there will be also public webinars and engagement opportunities. And the last component of this slide for the seasonal outlooks. So it's a fairly mature product. As usual, we will release the summer outlook by June 25. So looking at the adequacy for the summer of 25, and then the winter outlook looking at the winter 25 to 26, which we will aim to publish in November or at the latest by the 1st of December. So this is all for my overview. I'm happy to take any questions.
Yeah. We have a question in the chat from Michael Zoglauer. I'm not sure if this is addressed only to you or maybe also to the system operation colleagues, to Andrea and Florian. So the question is on the harmonization of the models for TIVA NDP and ERA outlooks and also the CGM. So I don't know who wants to jump on that.
Yeah, I would need some clarification of the question, especially like which models exactly. If what you mean is the scenarios, so we aim at using scenarios that are as similar as possible for TUNDP and for the ERA. Though there will be some differences because both studies have different objectives. Now I do not fully get where does the CGM come into play in this question? I have to be honest.
I would also have to ask back if it's a long-term CGM or the snapshots or whatever is meant here.
Hello.
Yes, Michael, please.
This is Michael. Thank you for having the opportunity. The question is, if we have the information available somewhere, it's somewhere written about this harmonization work, that the models which are used for the different work streams at ENTSO-E are going to be harmonized. And the TUNDP uses the expected grid model in the reference year. And is it based on the information on the CGM, or is it a total other work?
No, it's not. It's different from the CGM. So we build for each UNIP, we build our own models basically, and they're not related to the CGM.
Okay.
As far as I am informed, we do not even have a CGM looking 10 years ahead. Yeah. I think it's year ahead
Yes,
is
but
the
this
longest
is
outlook we perform.
the work streams are in the timeline. It's overlapping or going ahead, and then thank you for that information, and it will develop, and it's a very interesting process all over all the timelines.
So your advice is to look for a 10-year ahead CGM, yeah? To summarize, yeah?
Then we have a digital twin of our future.
Yes. No, but I think it's valuable. It's a valuable remark, not to work into that direction.
Yes. Okay.
Thank
you for the information. Thanks.
Okay. By the way, to round up Leah's presentation, just here's a second bullet of the 10-year network development plan, assessment of system needs onshore and offshore, and also the offshore network development plan in itself. That is also one of the action items from the EU Grid Action Plan and has really high priority. Yeah, so it's according to our process to list all legal mandates line by line. This is also under prioritized here in this presentation, like CGM. Yeah, that's also a task of very high importance. Okay. By that, I would like to close the system development presentation for today and move on to transparency, to our beautiful transparency regulation. In your voting, this only achieved 5%. So I can follow this. Transparency is maybe boring and seems less important. But I would like to highlight that in ACER, they spent a lot of resources on transparency. Yeah, which also comes back to us on data requests, on plenty of tasks. So even if we think it's low priority, we have to perform well and we have to spend a lot of resources on this. Yeah, so it's definitely worth to listen. Nita, thanks for being here. The floor is yours.
Yes, thank you. I will try to make it as interesting as possible. So, hi everyone, I'm Nijat from ENTSO-E Secretariat, working on the transparency platform. I will give you some updates. What is our plan for the next year? First of all, about the MOP updates, Manual of Procedures. As you might be aware, we have this year officially released the new MOP package, which is version 3 release 4. And it addresses the continuous allocations and flow-based publications, inclusion of energy storage, which was requested a lot by the users, and other improvements and editorial changes. And many of these changes have already been implemented or will be implemented by the end of the year. But some small work that remains will be completed in next year. And along with this release, we also have been working on parallel drafting of the next subsequent release, version 3 release 5, and the work on this direction will continue next year as well. In scope for this release, we have long-term flow-based allocations, improvements on outage publications, editorial changes to existing publications, etc. But it might be worth to also highlight here that the exact timeline and the scope of this next release is subject to the developments in other projects, such as long-term flow-based. Therefore, the implementation schedule will also be impacted accordingly. Then moving on to the TP redesign and vision projects. So we have 2 projects ongoing at the moment that will be delivered next year. TP Vision, for which the delivery is the new TP in the new user interface, and the TP redesign, which is the upgrade of the TP architecture. The planned go live for these projects is set for June next year, and it's planned to end the migration of the data items next year in September. And it will be followed by the decommissioning of the existing platform for the transparency platform. Until then, we run both of the platforms in parallel. Another important work stream that we are working on is about the statistical data, which is now published separately on the ENTSO-E website, but Going forward, we plan to implement it on the TP itself. This year we have been dealing with the drafting for this, and it's planned to be implemented next year. This enduring solution will also help us enable to automatize the reporting, and in the future it's planned to provide this data in the newly developed mobile app as well, which I will touch upon in a minute. Then the next about the TP facilitation for the information to Acer, including in the FCA data list, EB list of data. This will be tackled next year as well. CACM, for CACM, this has been already completed. Only a small change request is foreseen to be implemented soon, but we have just started the work on the EB list of data to be provided to Acer. And next year we plan to finalize on this and deliver it on TP. The last three items are action points coming from the TP Vision 2030, which is the long strategic outlook on how we aim to develop the transparency platform. There are three work streams, three projects ongoing at the moment for this strategy, and one of them is the reinvention of the TP mobile app to provide the users with a new functionality, more extensive data, and even functionalities that are not at the moment present on the transparency platform itself. And we have finalized the discovery phase for this, and we aim to start the development starting from later this year, and hopefully to deliver the mobile app during sometime in next year. The next about the data quality, for which we have been receiving a lot of attention from the stakeholders, market participants, from Acer. We have established a task force for this, who focuses on all data-related queries from the users and analyzes what compliance metrics we have and how we can improve on them, what new monitoring measures we can introduce. And the work on this direction continues, and next year will hopefully bear some fruits. And for all of these projects that we discussed, we are in close cooperation with the user groups, as usual through ETAG. But also we have established a new user group under ETAG, which is Co-Creation User Group, who meets more frequently than the usual ETAG meetings, and cooperates closely in the development of these projects, participates in the testing of the mobile app or the prototypes, or can give their suggestions more directly for the data quality. The participants here are also, of course, welcome to join either of these user groups if they wish to do so. For that, they can express their interest now or later over email through any channel for the transparency platform. Overall, at a high level, these are the plans that we have for the transparency platform next year. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to address. Otherwise, I'm done with the presentation. We cannot hear you, Eva-Marie.
Okay. Thank you, Nijat, and thank you also to Leonardo, who is also in the call and in charge of taking care of our transparency platform. Yes, so it's no question if we like it or not. It's really great that you both take care of this platform so that we can fulfill also our remit obligations that are growing and growing. And in my view, as far as I perceive it, developing more and more into a moving target. Yes, and just into implementation. Yes, so sometimes legislation is quicker than our implementation cycles. Yeah, thanks for being here. I do not see a raised hand. Then I would say let's continue. We have research and development. So it seems to be of minor interest for our audience, whereas I personally have doubts that we can survive without innovation. Yeah. So, John, thanks for being here. The floor is yours.
Thank you. Let's see if I can increase this percentage after the presentation at least. So my name is Ioannis Dologitis. I will give you a brief preview of the research, development and innovation activities from ENTSO-E for 2025. That they span across, of course, different sections of the TSO business. And for next year, we will be focusing on delivering the implementation plan the RDI implementation plan, which is part actually of the whole cycle of the RDI roadmap, as we call it. So in fact, 5 minutes ago, we just published on ENTSO-E website the new research development and innovation roadmap for 2024 until 2034. So it spans for 10 years ahead. So feel free to go ahead and see what the new milestones that we have defined tell about also the how we can accomplish the challenges of the future. But for next year, we'll be focusing on creating research development and innovation programs based on the milestones that we just published. And they're all clustered under main flagships, as we call them, that are around flexibility and market strategies for optimizing sector coupling aspects, for enhancing grid use and sustainability, focusing on both onshore and offshore grid development, stability management and hybrid AC/DC grids, and enhancing control and interoperability. So those main clusters, they have below them like more specific and detailed milestones, and on the basis of them, we will actually create programs within our implementation report launched next year, to be launched next year. On top of that, of course, ENTSO-E is participating on external projects as well, EU-funded projects as well, and taking part in certain European cooperations. With regard to the EU-funded projects, notably INTNET and TwinEU will be the two projects that we will be involved next year. INTNET is a project that is ongoing since 2022. And its focuses on interoperability activities on energy services. We, as ENTSO-E, we are involved in several different work packages. And with regard to TwinEU, which is kind of a fresh project as well, it started this year and will ramp up its activities next year. And the following one, it's practically focuses on delivering a digital twin ecosystem. And our involvement is mainly on gap analysis and use cases delivering this year, but also the following ones as well. Of course, as ENTSO-E, we are, we are involved in several different forums and platforms, working and cooperating with stakeholders, also within ETIPSnet and set plan activities as well. Maybe going to the next slide. Yeah, a few more insights and specifics with regard to the work. We are also following up some activities and specific actions stemming from the EU action plans, especially the Grid Action Plan and the Digitalization of Energy System Action Plan, and involved in the mandates stemming from the recent electricity market design reform regulation, and more specifically with regard to the flexibility. Flexibility is a word and a topic that is very broad and very hot over the last years, and it will continue being as such. As ENTSO-E, we have multiple streams around flexibility. We have also highlighted the needs for a proper needs assessment as well in our vision report that was published like 2 years ago. The topic is also part of our strategic roadmap that is also publicly available. And recently, you are very well aware that there has been a dedicated article that mandates ENTSO-E and EU DSO entity to work on a methodology for the analysis by TSOs and DSOs for the national flexibility needs. This is a work, of course, that has already been kicked off. Recently, we heard the news about the EMDR being publicly available. For this particular task, we have 9 months to complete the work. So it covers both this year's time, but also for next year. So it's an ongoing activity that we will carry also for 2025. Focusing on the EU Grid Action Plan, we have a project, we call it DESAP. It's basically following up the action plan for digitalizing the energy system, is still a cooperation with the EU DSO entity. We have been working this year, and also it will be the case for next year, on the basis of a very concrete project proposal. We have also kicked off interactions with relevant stakeholders, and the main objective of that is at the end to provide a framework, a roadmap for developing a framework for a digital twin. So identifying basically particular and specific research needs for achieving an optimum and efficient and effective digital twin of the grid. Another action stemming from the EU Grid Action Plan, Action 7, it also talks about a catalog of innovative technologies, referencing also Technopedia, that is a platform of technology facts that ENTSO-E maintains. And we are tasked to maintain and update this fact sheet together with the EU DSO entity. And that was really the preview from the innovation side, and thank you very much. And if there are any questions, happy to take.
Thank you, Johannes. I do not see a question or raised hand, but it was perfect introduction into the new network codes, which are really high priority and of high interest for our audience here today. Especially the network code on flexibility that has been renamed into demand response. Yeah, so flexibility is partly overarching in innovation, and partly operation, and also in our legal and regulatory framework, the new network code on demand response. I see, wait, stop. I see a question from the audience still on innovation. So it's about innovation projects to accelerate DC breakers. Yeah, that's a good question. I remember from my studies that it was claimed to be impossible to have really a DC breaker. But it's some years ago that I studied. I don't know, Johannes, if you can mention a concrete project.
No, I would lie if I say that I know a concrete project on DC breakers, but I read the name, so I can check, I can note down, and if I have anything, I will come back to Buhari. So thank you for the question.
Okay. Then I would say back to the flexibility and to the new network code on demand response. This has been a huge task in 2023 and 2024. Finally, we have a submitted package that is, in my view, still a way to go to get it implementable. But more details by Sultan. Thanks for being here. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Eva-Marie. Yeah, I will just present a bit about the scoping of the code and what has been the work done in this year, and then also what we plan to do in 2025 according to the annual work program. So normally the objective of the mandate that we received, it was to streamline the participation of distributed flexibility, meaning the EVs, heat pumps, and storage operated by system operators, both on the distribution and also on the transmission level. Also, there was a need to harmonize on EU level the flexibility service providers, how they could be aggregated and provide flexibility in general. And also it was fitting together with the decarbonization goals in the power sector. So the goals of the code was to achieve all of that in very short timing of 12 months of a mandate that we have received to propose a draft network code on demand response. Normally the timing of it started in 2020, actually, when there was a discussions on EC side on the priority list of what needs to be done for the EU rules on the demand response. And the concrete framework guideline from ACER was received and started to be worked on from December 2022. In 8th of March last year, we have received a mandate together with the DSO entity to develop a draft network code on demand response that we tried to do in 12 months timing, but then there was also a possibility of getting it in by 8th of May 2024. So this has happened very, very recently, that We submitted the package on NCDR. It was not only consisting of the network code legal text itself, but together with it in the package, there was the accompanying document explaining the rationale behind the network code demand response decisions and options that were chosen by the development team. Also, the required amendment proposals for the existing regulations, considering that network code demand response has a lot of synchronicities with the existing codes that I will talk in the slide that's coming up. So where we are at the moment is that we submitted the code and the accompanying documents together with it, so we can call it as a network code demand response package on 8th of May to Acer. So Acer has the pen now. What's going on over the summer period is that Acer is revising and discussing the submitted package with the respective national regulatory authorities. And as we know, 5th of September, there will be a launch of public consultation from Acer side on the submitted package. So normally Acer has time until 8th of March 2025, if I'm not mistaken, to submit the amended draft to European Commission. The expected entry into force of the code itself would be somewhere in the second half of 2025. That would be the content of this slide. If we could move on, voila, for the next slide, that I tried to mention which are the parts of the network code, so the building blocks, we can call it, of the code itself, and which kind of synchronicities it has with the existing codes, and then also what we will try to do in 2025. So the code itself is comprised of these 4 parts. We can that are visible on this in a colorful pie chart. So there is a general market access requirements that is Title 1 and Title 2 of the code, which are talking about simplified market access rules like aggregation models, which kind of baseline methodologies can be used, the baseline registry, and use of the DMDs and all of that together. So this is one chunk of the code. The second part is the requirements for service providers. So it's which kind of data standards should be there, the harmonized requirements for pre-qualification of the service providers, flexibility registry, how it should be all coming together, table of equivalences, and more than this. The third part is the red one that you can see is the market design principles. We can also say local market design principles here, because this part is dealing more with congestion management and voltage control principles. So here, local services are meant by that congestion management and voltage control. Yeah, and the last but not least is the coordination between relevant parties. It's more the systems operators, so the TSOs and DSOs, and relevant third parties in some cases. So yeah, the code can be split easily in these 4 segments. But we should also remember that the code is also coming into play with stemming national terms and conditions, which is how the code should be implemented on a member state level. And then I try to indicate here which parts of the code are relating to which existing regulations. Sorry for using abbreviations, but I guess we all know EBGL, SOGL, and Demand Connection Network Code, which I write here as DCNC. So for EBGL, you can see that the market access rules and market design principles for local markets are closely interacting with EBGL on the matters like the minimum bit size granularity for balancing standard balancing products, or imbalance adjustment processes that should be fitted well together with the aggregation models that we're proposing in the code itself, and many more small adjustments that needs to be happening in EBGL so that network code demand response works out as we propose it. Regarding SOGL and demand connection network code, there is a lot of provisions on pre-qualification that is that we can find a lot of synchronicities between the network code demand response and SOGL and NCDC. So, and also the definition of observability area for DSOs, which is a new defined term in the NCDR as it was for TSOs that is described in the SOGL. That would be more or less it, how you could navigate through the code itself in terms of content. But what we will do in 2025, it will be more on focusing on the implementation side. So together as associations, both ENTSO-E and DSO entity, we will try to create a framework for how this code can be implemented. And we already see some something that needs to be done as on associations level. For example, the union-wide TCMs, how the terms and conditions and methodologies on European level should be drafted. That could be a role for ENTSO-E and DSO entity to take over in terms of also baselining methodologies that could be used for aggregation models and baseline registry, like how it could work, and the monitoring reports of all of this also would be laying on the associations. More also on the standardized data exchanges or the list of data standards that needs to be followed by all the parties that are that will be involved in this in the processes needs to be also formed and standardized on the European level. So these are the things that we're seeing for the associations to do, and we will try to create this framework in the upcoming year, while working also closely within with both associations together on these matters. That would be it from my side. I hope it was not too much information in a very short time. I'm also checking the chat if there are any questions.
Yeah, thank you, Sultan.
So.
I do not see any at the moment. There is one question. What type of framework will the list of data standards be set?
Okay, so as you know already, for we already have some data standards that are followed by TSOs. For example, in the data exchanges on TSO-DSO coordination, that falls into this blue slice of the pie. How it will be the data exchanges between the distribution and the transmission level data. So we're trying to give also indications of the list of standards that could be followed. I mean, as you might also know, we cannot prescribe standard in the regulatory text. So in the network code itself, it cannot refer to any data standards because it is very easily prone to be outdated. But at least a non-exhaustive list of data standards can be mentioned. And also this will be in cooperation, that's why between the associations as well, of figuring out like standardized data exchanges for balancing, for example, that is already there for the standard balancing products. But what happens with the, with the local markets? So for all the services, let's say for congestion management and voltage control as well, that needs to be developed similarly to data exchanges for European balancing platforms, for example. So in this way, I hope I could answer your question, Adeline.
Maybe we can, yeah, seems resolved. Maybe the next network code is more easy because it's already in force. It's also new and in force. So we know exactly what to do in 2025. Network code and cybersecurity. Ron, thanks for being here. And thanks for the insight in our to-dos.
Thank you, Eva. Welcome, everyone. My name is Ron Wibbelink. I am the convener for the working group on network code on cybersecurity for the ENTSO-E, which is a collaboration with the DSO entity. As you can see on screen, the 13th of June this year, so last month, was a very important day. It was the entry into force of the network code on cybersecurity. This network code is a new network code focusing on setting throughout the Union the appropriate levels of cybersecurity in order to protect the European grid and especially the cross-border electricity flows from potential cyber attacks. As this network code has entered into force, it means that we start with the implementation phase. Roughly, there are two big steps in the implementation phase. The first one has already started, and that one is all about further detailing specific requirements coming from the network code, which in the end need to be used and or implemented by all entities that will fall under this network code. As you can see, there are 4 specific documents and documentation listed here. This is by all means not the complete list, which we will be working this year as well as 2025. But these are, well, the 4, let's say, most interesting ones. Starting with the first one, which is the methodology on cybersecurity risk assessment. This is a very important one. It will describe how cybersecurity risk assessment need to be executed and collected on a entity level, on a national level, on a regional level, and that's all about the so-called system operations regions, as well as on a European level. And based on those risk assessments, various specific security controls will be identified and made mandatory throughout the implementation phase for all entities. Next one is a provisional document listed here, which is actually a collection of existing and upcoming other European and international standards and controls relating to security. That's being done to make sure that per country, per member state, we will be able to, and all entities will be able to be aware and combine the various requirements which are applicable to them. The third document mentioned here is the cybersecurity incident classification scale methodology. That one is very important because it will set the EU-wide standard on how to classify certain cybersecurity incidents. And that is important for the upcoming process for sharing and reporting cybersecurity incidents, which in the end will be implemented to ensure that all entities will receive all, let's say, valuable and important information on cybersecurity incidents anywhere within the Union. Last but not least, the topic mentioned here is cybersecurity exercises on both an entity as well as a national level. We are preparing templates for that in the upcoming 1.5 years. This is, of course, all part of making sure that if a cybersecurity incident happens, for instance, a cybersecurity attack in one of the member states, that on an entity level, but also on a national level, and even on an EU-wide level, we will be able to respond properly. And being able to do that also means that you need to practice the various scenarios that could happen. So this is in short a summary. The list of documentation being created by the working group in the upcoming 1.5 years is longer. The work has already started. And within the next month to 2 months, there will be a separate website on the network code also published on the ENTSO-E website containing more detailed information. That's it from my side. If there are any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ron. At the moment, I do not see a concrete question, neither a raised hand. But it's the offer still to also reach out to you later on, no? In case of
Absolutely.
questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, thanks for being here. Thanks for your time. Next one is Michelle with the Implementing Act on Data Interoperability. Michelle, maybe if possible, you can also include an answer to the question from Adeline for the type of framework for list of data standards, yeah, to set. So
Yes.
I think that's partly overarching.
Yes,
So-
it's a link indeed. So good afternoon. So my name is Michelle, and I am in charge of the working group DIA on data interoperability in ENTSO-E. So in this working group, we will work on the on implementing acts on data interoperability. So it is foreseen by the electricity directive. And so with 3 implementing acts to develop. So the first one about access to metering data was adopted in 2023. We are working on the second one, which is called customer switching, but which is in fact deals with a change of supplier. And there will be a third implementing act about demand response. So it is, of course, really linked to the network code demand response. And with this implementing act, we will propose some reference models. So reference models, basically, it is a set of rules, a set of procedure, and some data object modeling. And so we will define this reference model in the implementing act. In the same way, in the same time, we will work also on some kind of standardization. So basically, it will be done in the joint working group. So this group is a joint between ENTSO-E and the EU DSO entity. And so this group has to propose to European Commission the implementing acts. For me, it's also in this group that the question of standardization will be taken. And so for me, the answer to the question is that the joint working group with a specific task force will contribute to the US work on the standardization. And one of the tasks will be to map the reference models defined in the implementing act to some existing standards, and if needed, to propose some amendments to the standards in order to comply with the reference model. So for me, yes, the joint working group will be also in charge for the identification of the possible standards in order to implement the reference models defined in the implementing act. Yes, you can go to next slide, I think. So here you have the timeline. As I said, the first implementing act for access to metering data was published in 2003. Now each member state is preparing the mapping of the reference model towards the national practices. And so this is due for 25. And ENTSO-E and EU DSO with the joint working group will have to publish all the mappings of national practices linked to this first implementing act. So we are currently finalizing the development of the proposal for the second implementing act on customer switching. We will send our proposal to the Commission before the end of this year. And for the third implementing act, the idea is to submit our proposal as it is linked to demand response and to the network code and demand response. The objective is to send our proposal to European Commission just after SR version sent to European Commission also. So the idea is that European Commission can decide on both network code and implementing act on demand response quite in the same time. And in parallel, we are working on data interoperability modeling. So basically, it is the link between the reference models that are defined in the implementing act and standards.
Thank you, Michelle. In the voting we had in the beginning, also your chapter interoperability and data got plenty of votes and is definitely of high interest for our audience, or at least of more interest than the TDI interface and the monitoring. So if you are ready, I would suggest that we jump now to slide number 36, I think, directly to the interoperability and data to make this picture round and maybe to answer potential questions on this during our official time of this workshop. And continue later with the less important parts.
Okay, so regarding interoperability and data, the main task of ENTSO-E is to develop and maintain some standards. So basically, for example, with electronic data interchange, EDI library, and also with the common grid model exchange standard. There is also the development of the common information model, the CIM model, and the development of implementation guide in order to support this harmonization of data exchanges in relation with the network codes. So this the group on standardization, of course, work with international organization and international standards. And the idea is to update some the existing standards. Regarding the activity of the joint working group, which is really linked also to standardization and interoperability. The idea is to maintain the what we call the harmonized role model, and also to contribute to the implementation of the interoperability requirements, to map the reference models defined in implementing acts towards standards, and to propose some updates in order to comply with the reference model. The working group DIA will also contribute to the topic which is called Common Energy Data Space. So this Common Energy Data Space is defined in the action plan from the European Commission related to digitalization of the energy sector. And there is this principle of the development of a common energy data space. I think European Commission will set up a new organization to lead the implementation of this common energy data space, and ENTSO-E will of course contribute to this organization.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Michelle. Can you maybe explicitly in one sentence point out the difference between the Demand Interoperability of Data Act and the Demand Response Act? Where's
the
the main
demand
difference?
response network code. So
for data standards.
The demand response network code is a market design regulation. So it defines some rules for the market and so on. Whereas the implementing act on demand response is here to provide interoperability and transparency to all the market players. So the idea is it's a kind of translation of what is defined in the network code demand response into a set of rules and procedures, and then each member state will have to explain how they have implemented all the procedure and with which roles, and the allocation of the role and the responsibility. So basically, implementing act on demand response doesn't define new obligation for the member state. The obligation are defined by the network code. It's the role of the network code to define obligation to be implementing in each member states, and implementing act is here to ensure transparency on the data exchange and to go towards future harmonization.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Michelle. I hope the question in the chat is answered by that. So it's, as far as I perceived your answer, it's complementary. No? That's the demand response network code sets the general frame, and the detailed implementation for data interoperability and data compatibility and so on is set in the implementing acts for data interoperability.
Yes, indeed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do not see further questions on interoperability and data, and we are almost done with our official time. So I would like to announce at least we have more time, also time for any of your other questions, that we just continue now back with the connection network code amendments. If you have to drop out, thanks for your interest. Thanks for being here. if you have some more time to continue, we are also happy. And we have all time you need to answer all the questions. Yes, so Marco, thanks for being here. Some words on the connection network code amendments, what's coming up next year.
Thank you, Eva Marie, for the chance to give some more details about connection network codes. I'm Marco Zaccaria, and I'm supporting at ENTSO-E Secretariat the steering group connection network codes. I would like to briefly share some updates regarding the amendments of these network codes. As you may know, on the 17th of June, Acer officially triggered the process to amend the network code HVDC. So the process is ongoing till the 8th of September, so for 12 weeks in total. This is just one of the three codes under review. Of course, this code has been slightly delayed in the amendment process compared to the other ones, in particular requirements for generators and demand connection code, which are now under the European Commission responsibility for the final publication and the entry into force, which is expected by the end of 2024 or early 2025. And just to share some of the main tasks for ENTSO-E for 2025 regarding these topics. There will be a huge focus on the development, drafting, and publication of implementation guidance documents. As you may know, there are already approximately more than 30 implementation guidance documents already published on the ENTSO-E website, and you can access through the link to them. Of course, the entry into force of an updated regulation will require for ENTSO-E to update some of the existing guidance documents. But at the same time, there will be a huge work also for the development of IGDs related to new topics addressed by the amended codes. Of course, all the time that ENTSO-E drafts an IGD, the document will be consulted with stakeholders. Of course, the stakeholders' participations in the process is foreseen. Another important task for 2025 is the collection and delivery to Acer of the data related to the monitoring of the network codes. So if we go to the next slide, please, we can just have a brief focus. Because, of course, according to the regulation, the legal mandate for ENTSO-E is to monitor the installed capacity per each country regarding the power generating modules, HVDC systems, and DC connected power park modules, and in particular highlighting the compliance or partial or not compliance to the network codes. I guess that this is the main focus. I don't know if there are questions.
So far, I do not see any, but if I may point out that also here you see how the system develops into a dynamic implementation, no? With interdependencies. So we have to wait for the decision of entry into force to trigger the next implementation.
Yeah, exactly, because as soon as the new regulation enter into force, there will be 3 years implementation period for the implementation at national level, of course. And so the above mentioned implementation guidance documents are really important to guide the TSOs in the implementation and to highlight non-binding guidance for those requirements which are non-exhaustive in the regulation.
Yeah, thank you, Marco.
Thank you.
Also for this insight. Next one, I think, is the transmission distribution interface. No, if Johannes is still available.
Yes, I am.
Thank you for that.
Of course. I can be brief on that one, actually, because it seems to be like a recap of many different things that we have discussed during this webinar. Since either explicitly mentioned or not, in many of those previously mentioned activities, we're working very closely with DSOs and the EU DSO entity as a representative body. So we are actually in a position that we have developed a common work plan for the next 2 years ahead. Actually, starting from for 2 years, effectively also from this year and next year. And this follows up the memorandum of understanding that we have established between the two organizations. So we have defined certain areas, thematic areas that we are actually focusing our energy and our collaboration efforts. And they span from energy system flexibility to operational aspects, grid infrastructure, empowering consumers, and of course other activities like the way that we collaborate together, a common messaging and events. So with regard to the energy system flexibility, of course, there is the network code demand response that many things have been said already. Other network codes that are affected also by the introduction of this new network code and the flexibility need assessment, which is a methodology that I mentioned before when we're presenting the research, development, and innovation activities. There is, of course, the network code on cybersecurity, which was also presented explicitly before, and the cooperation for the amendments on the existing connection codes that Marco has already presented just before. On the grid infrastructure, there are certain activities that they stem from the EU Grid Action Plan, notably Action 6, 7, and 13. Of course, there are activities with regard to the 10-year network development plan, and whatever also relates with the EU action plan on digitalization, which is the common project that we are working on that I also mentioned started already this year and will also continue for next year. When it comes to more digitalization aspects, if I may put them very, very briefly like that, already there have been very specific presentations on implementing acts and data interoperability, and also whatever is related with energy data space. Of course, as I mentioned, our continuous collaboration is assessed over the years. Our coordination activities are ramping up, of course, as needed. And that's why it may be the situation that we are also going to amend our memorandum of understanding, so a little bit more updating the formal coordination between the two organizations. But all in all, those are the main activities that we work together with the EU DSO entity. But of course, there are many other ad hoc areas that we tend to collaborate on almost daily basis. So thank you very much. That was one slide, in fact. So if there are any particular questions on that, happy to take it.
No. Thank you, Johannes. It's indeed a great overview on all our fields of cooperation with DSOs and other entities, and it's definitely growing field, no? So it's more and more growing together, so we need more and more cooperation, or let's say common projects and common work for implementation. Yeah, so it was nice overarching overview to complement what has been said before. And I think even more overarching is the question of monitoring and reporting. Yeah, that's maybe also not boring, but let's say less exciting task in ENTSO-E, but really important to be performed. and high priority for our NAs, no, to monitor what we are doing. So Marco, especially in markets. Yeah, the floor is yours.
Yes, thank you very much. My name is Marco Hartmann. I'm the convener of the reporting for Market Integration Working Group in ENTSO-E, which is taking care of all the market-relating monitoring tasks. And I will just give you a brief update what we have planned here within 2025. So first of all, there's the market report, which is a report in which we fulfill all the reporting obligations from the 3 market-related network codes. So that is CACM, FCA, and balancing guideline. So it covers all the timeframes from long-term day ahead over intraday until balancing. And here we basically include an implementation monitoring of all of the progress in implementing all the methodologies coming from these network codes. And besides that, we also have a chapter including where we as TSOs present our positions with regards to ongoing discussions whenever they might have an impact on the future European electricity market. So for instance, when it comes to the market design reform, this will, of course, impact the future of the electricity markets. Here we have included some positions from the TSOs on that. This market report is a yearly report, so it's published every year around the middle of the year. We have just end of June published the market report 2024 on ENTSO-E's website. So yeah, it's highly recommended to have a look in this. And then the second one, which I want to quickly introduce, is the capacity calculation and allocation report we are planning to publish next year. This is, the legal basis for this report is also coming from CACM and FCA guidelines, and it's in particular focused on one specific methodology, which is the capacity calculation methodology. So this is a regional methodology, and in this report, we monitor the implementation progress of the capacity calculation in the different CCRs. This we do via specific statistical and quality indicators that we have in the report or that we have aligned beforehand with Acer on, and we assess the CC methodologies with respect to these indicators. This report is a biennial one, so it's every other year together with the Marco report published around middle of the year. And that's a very brief overview on the market side of the monitoring activities.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you, Marco. Indeed, we also have system operation monitoring reports. I don't know if Gamze is still available because we are already behind schedule. If not, seems for the connection network codes, it's easy. It's nothing planned for this year. But maybe Marco can have a second word on that.
No, yes, it's just to to underline that so far it's not foreseen a report, but on unregular basis, of course, in case of important need of monitoring, the report will be delivered in the future for sure, especially considering the implementation phase at national level. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Marco. And maybe before we close the webinar, we have 2 questions in the F&A on your slide on the connection network codes that still need to be answered.
Yeah, okay. Sure.
And maybe, I don't know if Gamze is available still. Otherwise, I briefly complement that for system operation, we of course have the annual reports on incident classification and load frequency control. And we also have this year in 2025, the biannual report on probabilistic risk assessment. Gamze, do you want to complement something? Sorry for jumping in. Gamze is our expert for system operation monitorings. Okay, maybe we can come back to some complementary comments to system operation as last point. First, maybe the 2 questions on the connection network codes. From the list of compliant and non-compliant PGMs, is that made available to everyone? Marco?
Yes, sorry, I was typing. No, it's data is confidential. I mean, the obligation is to deliver the data to Acer, so they are not published on ENTSO-E website, for instance, but delivered to Acer according to their requests.
Mm-hmm. And for the second question, stakeholder involvement.
Yes, I replied, but yeah, just to give more details. Of course, there's this Grid Connection European Stakeholder Committee, which is chaired by Acer and participated by relevant stakeholders. During the last meeting on 27th of June, ENTSO-E provided a detailed list of the plan regarding the development and drafting of the IGDs. Of course, it's a huge work, which is not only for 2025, but will last, of course, for the implementation period of the new codes. So, of course, stakeholders can provide inputs in terms of missing topics, and ENTSO-E will assess these topics, prioritizing them just according to the available resources, because yeah, there's just for updating the huge list of the existing IGDs, you can imagine it can take some months. So of course we can prioritize the hot topics, let's say, for instance, the new topics that should be addressed due to the updated regulation for the news according to the regulation. But I don't know if there was another question. Maybe I lost it, or it's this one. No, I guess it's this one.
That was this one. I think it's covered. Okay, and then we have last question to Ludivine on markets. I don't know if Ludivine is still available. It's a question on reactive power markets or inertia markets. Someone is missing them in our annual work program.
Good afternoon again. So where can I see the question again? Because
it's in the chat. It's in the chat.
In the chat.
The electricity markets mentioned imply active power. And what plans are there for reactive power or inertia markets?
This I will need to check. I do not have any answer yet on this question specifically, so I'll note the name down and I will get back to you, Alcazar.
Yeah, if I may answer, just with the disclaimer that I'm not an expert in this part. Yeah, so both reactive power markets or inertia markets are very local markets because you need the product locally. Yeah, so that means I personally, based on my electrical engineering background, have doubts that there's pan-European markets possible on both reactive power and inertia markets. And for sure, we don't have it in our annual work program 2025. Yeah, but with the disclaimer that I'm not the expert on innovation or on whatever might be, just with the electrical power engineering background. I hope this already helps. Yes, so it would be very local markets or very local products, just from the technical background. Okay, seems question is solved. No, it's liked, so it's of more interest for others also. But I do not see further questions. Then I would say thank you for your patience and for the active contributions and also for the questions. Before you leave us, we have some questions to you. We would really be happy for some general feedback. Again, via poll in Teams and without names recorded. So we would like to know how you liked the webinar, what we could do better next year, what was valuable, and what we could maybe leave out. Yeah, I don't know if we have now to wait for the results. Otherwise, I would say big thank you for your active participation, for your patience, and also happy if you have further questions beyond, please reach out to us. I will definitely wait for the result here of the voting. But it's up to you how long you should wait. Olga, can you maybe say a few words about the poll? If it's still open, if we formally close the webinar, or if it's gone, or how we proceed now?
Thank you, Eva Marie. So normally on your screen you will see now 7 questions, which will help us to improve the organization of our future events. So thank you very much for all your answers. So I see there are already some votes. So basically you can see already the results also on your screens. If you click on each question, so you will see. So thank you all for this, and I think, Eva Marie, we can close our webinar.
Okay, that's great. Then big thank you for the active contributions again. Have a nice afternoon. Apologies for the delay in closing the webinar, and I hope we sufficiently answered all your questions. Take care. Enjoy the rest of the day.
And thank you, Eva,
Bye-bye.
for chairing the meeting, moderating.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye.